leader training by webinar. We did this since we didn't want chapters to incur all the expenses of CLTs this year after the Hurricane Irma canceled conference last year. So it was not a decision made lightly to do away with CLTs for 2018, but we've been very pleased with your attendance at our webinars and very pleased with the performance of our facilitators at these webinars. It's been a good experience, and it's really nice to have these on file so that you, and I know in a lot of chapters there's a change of leadership July 1. You can direct people to the NMA website as they take on new positions, and then they can, as I jokingly like to say, they can log on in their bunny slippers at any time of day or night and listen to those webinars that are particularly applicable to their own jobs. And I certainly draw you to the first one, the ingredients of a successful chapter operation. So today we're going to talk about the roles and responsibilities of a director and associate director. More importantly, we want to talk about how to become a director, and then how you be a director once it's taken place. We have with us today as our facilitator, Cathy Longo, who is currently the Director of HCV Business Administration in Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan's Healthcare Value Division. Cathy's career with Blue Cross has been in many areas: data analysis, product development and implementation, corporate and business planning. She's a charter member of the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan Leadership Development Association in Detroit. She's been very active with the chapter since its inception. In 1994, she became only the third female executive, female chairman of the board of NMA. Cathy has remained active. She's an active member of our board, co-chairing Association Services and Development, and many of you know her as the lady who runs our silent auction at the annual conference. Cathy has an MBA from Oakland University and a bachelor's degree in medical record administration from Mercy College in Detroit. She's been happily married to Joe for, as she likes to joke, longer than she's been at Blue Cross. Cathy and Joe are very active in the community. Joe is a district judge in the 43rd District Court, and Cathy is involved in numerous political and non-political organizations. So, nobody knows more about being a director than Cathy Longo. So I am pleased to turn this over to her. Cathy, the show is yours.
Thanks so much, Steve. Although I noticed that, as you usually do, you attempted to make me appear older than I am. I actually was the chair in 99, not 94, but I have been on the board since 94, so I guess I will claim that that line that I know a little bit about being a member of the NMA Board of Directors. However, like everything we are involved in life, even that role has changed a little bit over the last, I can't even do the math, number of years that I've been on the board. So this is a subject near and dear to my heart. And for the most part, the deck you've been sent is one that this is actually our board of director training deck. So I'm going to go through this with the hope that each of you who are not already directors, I know we have a few national directors who have joined the call, and they will keep me honest and correct me if I say something wrong. But the vast majority of you on the call I'm hoping are considering to take on this role. It's an extremely, just personally and professionally satisfying role to take, to be either a director or what we refer to as an associate director. And as I go through this, there are some nuanced differences between the two roles. I'll get to them when we get to those points. But I'm going to talk as if you're ready, willing, and able to join us at our July meeting of the Board of Directors as we go through this. The advantage to that is if you all join before the July board meeting as director members, I do not have to do this training again in July. So that would be a good thing from my perspective if you all just at the end of this agree to become a board member or an associate director if you are not one already, because this will just be this compelling discussion about how wonderful a role this is. In all seriousness, it really is not forwarding let me close this. Nope, Sue, it's not doing it. Okay, maybe now it will. There we go. The one thing I am not is very technical. So I'm probably one of the worst people they could have picked to do a webinar, because I'm feeling like I'm out here on my own with this technical thing. But Sue will rescue me if I blow something up along the way in this next 40 so minutes that we'll discuss this. We'll leave some time at the end for questions. As we go through this, I'll kind of pause a few times if you want to chime in. I know everybody's on mute, so if you want to, I think there's something that allows you to raise your hand or send a question over to Steve, and we can also do that as we go through it. But I'm going to speak to you as if you're in this role, so bear with me as I go through that. I'll hopefully make it as clear as possible. You were, as a member and a chapter leader, you get introduced to NMA as a whole and how the organization is run. Hopefully you're familiar with the governing documents of NMA. Those become, as a director, an associate director, those become sort of your Bibles and your guidelines, and the things you can and can't do with this association are embedded in our governing documents. So there's the Code of Ethics and the Statement of Principles, but there's also a number of documents that, as a board member, truly become, your guidelines, and that is our Constitution and our bylaws. And then, we have this thing called the Policy and Procedure Manual as well, but most of those we really rely on Steve and Sue to make sure we're following. But these documents really outline how this organization works. And until I became a director and started to familiarize myself with our Constitution of the national organization and our bylaws and policies and procedures, I really didn't have a full sense of how the organization operated. I mean, I knew as a chapter leader, what we had to do with we called it the R1 when I was in a chapter role, now the CAR report. And I knew basically the services and all of that NMA offered. But being a board member layers in a whole different level of information that you need to know, and really how the board and the organization functions becomes your responsibility as sort of that shepherd of the organization itself and its guidance. So I don't mean to scare you. It carries a lot of weight. It's a very important role, but it is an extremely rewarding role as well. In that new role as a director or associate director, you have an opportunity to really help guide the national organization itself. Now, depending on the role you played at the chapter level, you were doing similar things. You had chapter bylaws, you had a chapter constitution, you certainly had policies, procedures that you ran at the chapter level. You're really sort of kicking that up a notch when you take on that role at the national level. It's a great personal and professional growth experience. One of the things that I have gotten, the best thing that I've gotten out of being a director, yes, I can recite Robert's rules with the best of them these days for as many years as I've been on the board. But what I've really gotten out of NMA at the national level is a wealth of new friends, business contacts, but most importantly, new friends and experiences that I never would have had the opportunity to have were it not for my role as an NMA board member. You gain so much personally in growth and experience related to serving in this capacity with NMA. So what I want to do is kind of introduce you. The duties aren't aren't mysteries. They're not, very different than what you would play at the chapter level. But now you're taking that experience from the chapter and expanding it to the national organization, where instead of 2,000 or 3,000, you're looking at 10,000, 12,000 members who are looking to you to shepherd this organization, to take care of it, to protect our assets, all those things that any board in any organization is responsible for. So I'm going to introduce you to the major roles and responsibilities of the board. And this next slide just kind of shows you where those responsibilities fall. There's a bunch of tools that I'll introduce you to over the next, half hour or so, and then kind of walk you through some direct toolkit items that will be very helpful as you consider taking on this role. Really, the core role that we serve as NMA directors is to participate within the board, on the board, within the national organization. But equally importantly, we are there to support our chapters and represent our chapters in our role on the board. So we become the voice for the chapter we're representing, or the individual we're representing, because we do have individual members on the board. We become the voice between the chapter and national. We're there to take the chapter's concerns, to recommend new directions, and then from a national standpoint, to see those carried out by either ourselves as members of the board or for the NMA staff. So participation and support are really the two key roles that you play as a director. You get some very specific assignments. You are assigned as a director to 2 of 4 key committees, and we'll go into the committee responsibilities momentarily. You're also assigned to chapter or chapters or councils that are in your area to help support them as well. So many of us join the board from a chapter. That chapter is supporting us. Obviously, if you're supported by a chapter, you will represent that chapter. But you also may get some other chapters who either don't have the resources or maybe even the knowledge about the value of supporting a national director. And so you would be assigned to additional chapters where they don't have their own national director support. And you also may be assigned, if you have a council in your area, to a council to, again, play that support role, that intermediary role, that voice for that assigned chapter or council. The other responsibilities are to the officers of the National Management Association. So we have a number of the typical officers you would find. We have a chair, a vice chair, a treasurer, and a secretary. And we also have an area chair representing that helps to organize the activity in each of NMA's 6 areas. So we sort of report up through those officers and have some responsibilities to them as well as part of our director duties. And then we have some responsibilities to NMA staff to help support them, to make it very clear what our chapters need so that they can deliver on those needs, to take their concerns back to chapters. Again, it's sort of this intermediary role between staff, between national, and between our chapters and our council. And I apologize to council folks on the call. We don't have a chapter here in Michigan, so I always have to remind myself to mention, and councils, if you have those in your areas. So we really become that voice for the membership, however they are identified throughout the country, for the membership of NMA, and that liaison between the membership, the board, the membership, the staff, and vice versa. We're responsible to report back to our chapters about what's going on at the board, about what new programs are coming out, about opportunities to maybe identify other chapters in our areas. Those are the kinds of general responsibilities that you have as a board member. you don't do it all by yourself. You have other board members there to support you, the officers and the staff, of course, and then a number of tools that we'll go through that can help you fulfill your duties as a director. One of the key things that you do as a director is a monthly online director report. So back in '94, this wasn't so online, but today, of course, it is all out there. We have access to a tool that allows us every month to keep NMA apprised of what's going on with those chapters that we represent. This is a very helpful tool in terms of alerting Steve and the staff to maybe something someone needs from national, to alerting them to some growth opportunities, and to just share the best practices that we see going on in those chapters that we represent. So that is kind of like duty number one for the national director and associate directors, to provide an online director report back to national and back to the officers. That helps us understand if we have chapters that are struggling with the car report, or struggling with trying to find new ways to get executive involvement. It enables us, and this is a great role of the national director, it enables us to share best practices across all of our NMA chapters across the country. And in many cases, those solutions have already been vetted and tried and are working in other areas and other chapters. And those chapters struggling with those ideas have direct access through the director to new ideas, new solutions, and new opportunities. We do have a director's toolkit. The rest of these are sort of the documents and the tools that you need to recognize and use on a regular basis as a director, particularly, as I mentioned before, G and I, our policies and procedure manual, and our constitution and bylaws. So I'm going to go through a few of the specifics here. Maybe I'll pause at this point, Steve and Sue, to see if there's any initial questions with the direction I'm going here. I'm not hearing anything, so.
You're doing fine. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that. My mute was on. You're doing fine.
Okay, thanks. All right, so leadership roles. This is the core purpose of being a national director. You are a policymaker for the national organization. So your role in there is to determine what benefits the members and the association as a whole need, what new programs we might want to put out there, how to structure our dues, the whole range of how should this national organization work, how can it better benefit its members and the association as a whole, how can it grow. You're charged with making those policies that make this organization run and make it grow and make it survive. So no small task, but a great leadership development opportunity. The second half, equally balanced, of the role is the national representation that you provide to members in the councils and the chapters that you represent. So we're, the board of directors is essentially like Congress. You're supported by a chapter, you represent that chapter at the board to bring their issues and help shape national policy so that your chapter, your council, the individual members in your area can benefit more greatly from the value that NMA is delivering. Probably the most difficult part of the role sometimes becomes that balance between these two key responsibilities that you have as a director or an associate director. Over the course of the years that I've spent on the national board, have these two roles ever come in conflict? Of course they do. When national needs to consider a dues increase, for example, you've got to consider the impact that that's going to have on your chapter and your local levels. So that's probably the most obvious example of when this role, that balance in this role, can become difficult. You need new programs. Your chapter is of a particular industry. And this was something, quite frankly, that I faced when I first joined the board. I work for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. We're in health insurance. Today, and this was as true in '94 when I first joined the board, the vast majority of our NMA membership is in aerospace and technology types of things. And early in NMA, it was very manufacturing oriented. What we had in our repertoire nationally of leadership development programming was very manufacturing oriented. I'm very proud to say today, not just through Blue Cross being on the board, but other service industries joining the board and having that influence, we have programs now in professional development that work well in a broader, diverse definition of industries across, represented by our NMA chapters across the country. And so being on the board gave me that opportunity to influence the kinds of professional development materials that NMA was producing or partnering with, and it enabled us to broaden and diversify that portfolio. That became a great benefit for NMA because we got more professional development sales out of it, and it also became a benefit for the chapters because they had materials that were more relevant to their particular industries. So that is just one example of the reason why that we need directors on the board from our chapters across NMA and our councils across NMA, because that sharing of diversity benefits both the chapter and NMA as a whole. So yes, there'll be times where you got to make that balance, but more often you have times where what you're deciding is a benefit for both the NMA and the chapter. You accept leadership responsibility and teach it to others. We do have mentor programs on the board, so we're moving our new board members in with some education and some understanding and some mentorship, and then the expectation is that that also will be returned down the line in terms of having others come on board as well. So it really is a position of authority and leadership. It allows you to promote NMA both nationally and at the chapter level, but it also allows you to get national recognition for your chapter activities. There are those best practices as we share, and then of course they're really promoting our recognition programs so that your chapter leaders and your chapter activities can get the national recognition that they deserve. By you being on the national board, you have an opportunity to bring that forth in front of a national audience. So that's a great aspect to your leadership role. So how do directors assist in terms of providing this leadership and growing both the national and their local chapters and councils? You are part of the leadership and the goals of both the national organization and your local organizations. So when you're a director, not only do you sit on the national board, but you also usually sit as an advisor, not usually as a voting member, but as an advisor to your local chapter, your council as well. So you're part of the leadership of both of those organizations and have the opportunity to contribute to the accomplishments of the goals of both of those organizations as well. This is probably the biggest way that national directors assist, and that's through communication. You assist by being that conduit of information between national and the chapter, and also in terms of sharing with the board the challenges and the opportunities that the chapters are seeing as well. So that two-way communication, you are actually the conduit for that, and that is a major major portion of your responsibility as a director. I've already mentioned that you share best practices and lessons learned with assigned chapters in the board of directors. You do have a role in interpreting our NMA policies and procedures. The way this actually works, as a board member, the board actually owns the bylaws. So it is the board of directors that make the decisions on changes to the bylaws, new bylaws, deleting bylaws, and interpreting the bylaws themselves. The Constitution, on the other hand, is owned by the members. So while the board often will put forth a recommendation for a change in the Constitution, it takes a vote of the members to change it. So again, that's where you become very important in the communication of, why we might need to change the Constitution or add to the Constitution, because it actually becomes a vote of the membership, not of the board. The board also informs and owns the policy and procedures as they go through the internal workings of NMA. Your role in that communication role is to inform the chapters of the new products and services that are available from NMA, as well as to your executives in your sponsor companies, but also to bring to NMA those things that the chapters and the councils and your sponsoring organizations might want to see in terms of new products and services that NMA should consider offering. And finally, your biggest role in any communication type of setting is to also listen to your chapters, to your councils, and to your fellow board members. And I know it's not on here, but we probably should say, and the staff, and act as that liaison, that mediator between all of the components of the NMA structure. So these are more specific responsibilities that you have. The first is that you'll have 3 NMA Board of Directors meetings to attend every year. We do have virtual attendance through Skype, so you can attend in person or virtually, but we like to emphasize that it would be great for at least one board meeting to be attended in person. A board, like any other organization, functions best when people get to know each other, put names to faces. To do it all virtually, you'd lose a little bit of that, but the virtual option is there. We know that in a time of tighter budgets and travel restrictions and things like that, that attending them all in person becomes a little more difficult. It's been surprising as someone who's been on the board since '94. We operate our board meetings just as efficiently with people attending virtually as we do in the room. So we've mastered Skype and those kinds of techniques, and we have that option available. The board meetings are 3 times a year. There's one in January, there's one in July, and I will tell you the weather is better in July in Dayton than it is in January. And then the last one is in the fall at the time of our national conference. So the annual meeting is generally held in the early part of September. Most recently, that's been the time frame. And just before the start of the annual meeting, we also have a board meeting. So typically, if you can't make it to Dayton in January and July, then coming to the national conference not only gives you the opportunity to attend a board meeting in person, it also gives you the opportunity to attend the conference and to join in the recognition that happens at the conference that you in part have been participants in making happen. So that one is particularly always a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of. Secondly, you need to provide consistent and timely communication between the chapters and the councils you are assigned to support. So I've already talked to you about the fact that you'll have a monthly director report. It's online, it's very easy to do. You're encouraged, now obviously this will differ based on your chapter's rules, but typically you'll go to your chapter board meetings your council meetings, whichever organizations that you are representing. You are a part of the board of directors' policy decisions. In those roles and in those decisions, you represent your chapter and your council views. So this is where there would be decisions on bylaws, decisions on policies and procedures, decisions on new products. Those types of things you would always be part of and a decision maker specifically in that activity. You have a responsibility, as we mentioned earlier, to communicate and educate the chapters and the councils on those board of director decisions that affect the chapters and the councils. And then really, hopefully goes without saying, but something we want to put out there is the beauty to the board is a diverse organization, as is NMA. And we're going to always have differing views. And one of your responsibilities is to consider the differing views of others that are on the board, the NMA staff, and the membership as a whole during difficult conversations. I have thoroughly enjoyed my service on the board, and I can tell you that the vast majority of times our conversations are professional and pleasant, and that every now and then we get into difficult decisions, and those are always handled diplomatically, professionally, and I give a great deal of credit to not only the other members that I serve with on the board, but our staff and our officers as well. It's been an amazing experience that's not been more difficult than it could be given the diversity across the board. Again, this is probably as an individual where you get the most growth opportunity to be able to listen and to consider those diverse views, and in the end still come up with the best decision for our organization, for our chapters and our councils and our members. So those are probably the most specific description of your duties as a member of the board of directors. I mentioned that you're going to serve on assigned committees. So we have 4 standing committees on the board: Association Services and Development. This committee is primarily related to our membership. How do we grow it? What services do we offer our members? What services aren't serving our members well? Kind of both sides of that. But this committee is all about association growth. Communication and community, this is one of my personal favorite committees that I've been on for a number of years. This is, how well is our website working? What other communication vehicles do we need? This is where we talk about our conferences, doing webinars, doing chapter leadership training. And then the other component here is community service. This is the speech contest falls under the purview of this committee. The community service activities that we do whenever we are visiting an area for our conferences or our chapter leadership conferences, and other community service activities are here. And each of these, I'll say that at the end. And then the last one, which is really sort of the core service of NMA, is our professional development committee. This focuses on providing those tools, classes, partnerships, etc., that help our members with personal and professional growth, which is, of course, the core reason for NMA's existence. And then finally, probably the fun committee is the recognition committee. This is the committee that just, kind of manages that CAR 1 report, decides, how to best recognize what our members and our councils and our chapters are doing. This is also the committee that judges the publication contests, the Executive of the Year, the Member of the Year, and the Hall of Fame Awards, and plans our whole recognition luncheon that occurs at the annual meeting every year. A lot of what the other committees do feeds recognition. If we're coming up with a new design or something for professional development, and we want to encourage the chapters to use it, then we use our CAR 1 and our recognition to sort of promote the changes, et cetera, and the directions that NMA is trying to go in based on what the other committees are driving in their own plans. So recognition kind of pulls together all the pieces that association services, community, communication and community, and professional development committees are trying to drive and help our members connect to it and succeed in those plans for the organization. So those are the 4 committees. You do get to pick what your preferences are. You'll pick 2 committees that you'd like to serve on. But we do ultimately assign board members to those committees so that we have, again, a diverse representation from our chapters, from our regions, et cetera. So you may not always get your first pick on which committee to sit on. So when you sign up to be a director and you send in that preference sheet, get it in the door fast, so you can have a chance to get the committees of your choice. Your responsibility will be to attend each committee meeting and participate fully. Committees meet on at each of the 3 board of directors meetings. There'll be a series of committee meetings that day as well. And then committees can also meet in between board meetings, depending on the work that needs to be done for the committees and their plans that year. Those interim meetings, which are always by phone, are sometimes necessary. You also have the responsibility, as you would on any committee that you attended or that you participated in, to follow through on committee activities that might occur between the meetings, and that you represent and cultivate creative opportunities for NMA and for your represented chapters and councils and the members back home at those chapters and councils. So that is the assigned committee. Maybe this might be another good place to do a quick pause to see if there's any questions.
Cathy, all clear in the chat room so far, so proceed.
Okay, proceeding. Okay, these are your responsibilities as they relate to your assigned chapters and councils. And I've gone through some of this before, so I think I can do this one fairly quickly. Your communication. Visit each chapter that you're assigned as often as possible. Now, that works really well for the chapter that you belong to, but if you are assigned a chapter that is not yours or not in your area, that visit can be virtual, but we do want you to reach out at least once a quarter to just kind of check in with them, monitor the strength of that chapter. Are they participating in the awards program? Are they having monthly meetings? Are they getting their newsletter out? Those types of things would be great check-in points for you over the course of your year as their assigned director. Assisting chapter leaders in establishing annual goals and objectives. We actually have a tradition here at Blue Cross, and it's coming up this weekend, where we have what is now being fondly called Aunt Cathy Camp. So I actually have the good fortune to have a place that I can host our incoming chapter officers. They come out, we do a day and a half or so of chapter planning for the upcoming year. It gives them a sense or a chance to bond and kind of get to know each other as a team, as an officer team for the chapter very well. And it gives them a chance to lay out their plans. We use the CAR 1 report as the basis for that planning. And it's a great opportunity for me as their, as a director. I'm actually not their national director, but he'll be there too. Won't you, Matt? But it gives me a chance to, give them access to the tools that I know and use, and winds up being a really good planning tool for the chapter. So at the beginning of that chapter year is a great time to provide that assistance in establishing their annual goals and objectives. you are absolutely a sounding board for chapter leaders. You've been there. You've been through the chapter roles. You've led either a committee or the chapter as president or the chapter board, and you're a great mentor with that kind of information to assist the chapter leaders. And you know what's going on at national, which is a good thing that you bring to the table. I've mentioned many times that your role is a facilitator. The other place you can help facilitate the chapter is between the chapter and its executive advisors. You keep the chapter informed of NMA programs and new initiatives. We talked about that. And again, this is chapters and councils, not just the chapters. Encourage them to submit petitions for directors and association directors. Once, of course, you do yours and you get on the board, then you want to bring in people behind you. An associate director role is perfect for that. The real difference, the real, I guess, legal difference, I can't see me putting that in quotes, but I put that in quotes, between an associate director and a director is that the associate director doesn't have a vote on the board. But associate directors play key roles in so many other of these activities in terms of communication, in terms of being a liaison. And we have probably the consummate associate director on our call today, Avis French. And I'm going to give Avis a moment, maybe now, if you're ready, Avis, to just kind of talk about the value of being an associate director.
Thank you. I was going to comment at the end, but now's a good opportunity. I've been an associate director now for over 10 years. And while it's a lot of work, it's absolutely one of the more rewarding things that I do in NMA. It gives me an opportunity to connect the chapter with the national organization, and my two chapters, until I became their associate director, didn't even know they had a director or that there was a national board of directors. And over the years, I've been able to facilitate some changes in policies and procedures to benefit my little chapters. I also am an associate director for the Southern California Area Council. So I have had an opportunity there to help them. One thing I wanted to say was I was pleased to hear you talk about medical center chapters, because for a long, long time in the Southern California Area Council, we had all 5 of the medical center chapters in our council, including the first medical center chapter. And it was true that professional development at that point in time really wasn't relevant to the medical center chapters. And by working with the national organization, and particularly the absolutely incredible NMA staff in Dayton, we were able to effect some changes in the professional development offerings that became much more relevant to the medical center chapters. And I do have an opportunity to attend remotely the regular board of directors meetings, particularly for 2 committees, and they can tell you that I'm not quiet. And they
Yes,
listen.
we can.
And go ahead and laugh. That's okay. And it was very enlightening to me to sit in on the national committee meetings and see how they thought, how they worked together to arrive at whatever policies and procedures they decided to do. And it's absolutely enlightening. And if you cannot support a national director, an associate director can be absolutely invaluable for your chapter. And if your national director does a lot of traveling for the company, you can be absolutely invaluable to them as well. It's just a great thing to do.
Thanks, Avis. I appreciated the encouragement there. Okay, so as Avis said, as an associate, you can virtually do everything that the director does. And it's just a great way to get exposed to it if you're not ready to, or your chapter's not ready to make the financial commitment to the full director role. Couple of other things that duties that you have with respect to your chapters or councils is to keep them aware of the connection with NMA headquarters. A lot of times our members are very focused on the fact that they are part of the chapter, but they don't have as much recognition that they're part of a national organization, and the benefits and the networking and the opportunities that come with being connected at that national level. So it's great, a great role for the director to sort of remind folks of that connection with national. And then we also like to very specifically encourage our members to register for a My NMA account. That gives them a lot more direct contact with other members across NMA, chat rooms, best practice sharing, that type, and general information sharing as well. So that's a very specific responsibility of the board. And then a few other things close to my heart that I love to talk about is that we really, as directors, have a responsibility to encourage our chapters, councils, and our members to take part in our recognition programs. Being part of the recognition programs really helps make a chapter strong. It gives them that best practice foundation of running a chapter, of doing the things that keep members engaged, etc., and connecting it to the recognition program not only gives them that sort of formal structure and model to use, but it also very enthusiastically gives them the recognition they deserve for the time and effort they're putting in to creating and running a successful chapter. So reporting activities on the CAR 1 and the CAR 2 forms, CAR 1 being chapter, CAR 2 being councils, as a part of the recognition program, submitting their nominees for our national individual awards, Hall of Fame, Executive of the Year, Member of the Year, and the Mcfeely Award. For those who may not know what the Mcfeely Award is, that is a professional, an award we give usually every other year to an individual who has made a contribution in the field of publishing around leadership and management. One of our relatively recent award winners was Marcus Buckingham from Gallup and the whole Strengths Finder information that was very popular a couple of years back. That type of individual at a national level brings a lot of value to our members and allows NMA to recognize individuals who have really educated our members on some key and very important leadership models and attributes and information. There are also chapter awards that we encourage the chapters and councils to participate in. Their own Member of the Year, a Management of the Year, we here call it a Leader of the Year, Publications Awards, Silver Knights, Gold Knights, and a whole host of opportunities to recognize members, committees, individuals, executives, customers that are really doing the things that we as NMA members hold out as our principles of leadership. And NMA makes it very, very easy for that recognition to take place. And as a board member, really encouraging chapters and councils to participate in those award programs really strengthens the chapters, provides a lot of satisfaction to the members, not only that are getting the awards, but when our membership sees that year after year we've achieved an outstanding award, it gives them pride in the organization they belong to. So it helps with your growth and sustaining membership, and it helps with nationals as well. You also have very specific duties to install your new chapter officers every year. If there is a council in the area, to join it or to perhaps form a council if there's interest in that. To participate in the annual membership drive, where there's usually some discount advantages that you can take advantage of. To submit articles to Break Time, that's our national online newsletter, again, where chapters have the opportunity to share best practices, to reach out for different opinions, to recognize individuals throughout their chapter, and to also request chapters and members to use social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc., to share information regarding NMA and invite others to join. So those are some of the other responsibilities that you have as a national director. The next slide just sort of gives you sort of what the career path is for national directors within NMA. You know, you start out on the board as a director, but then you have the opportunity to, assuming you have the support from your chapter, your sponsoring organization, your council, to sort of move up the ladder within the national organization to become an area chair or a national officer. As directors, you have responsibilities to these officers, you know, in terms of acting on your assigned chapters, using these individuals as mentors, receiving your assignments from the area chair or the national vice chair. I already mentioned submitting your online report every month, advising the chairs and the officers of what's going on at your chapters or any special needs that they might have, and also informing the chair and the national officers when you're unable to fulfill a commitment. And then there is some interaction and responsibility to NMA headquarters. In encouraging your chapters to use NMA staff and the website as a resource for information, keeping us informed of activities going on in your chapters, inviting Steve to come to a chapter meeting. He loves doing that. Contacting the NMA staff to act as a sounding board, share chapter best practices and lessons learned. How many times do we have submit your director's monthly service reports in this presentation? You got to believe we really want you to do that as a national director. Assist with the various activities at conferences, as Sue mentioned. I took on, I think it was in 2002, the silent auction. I will warn you, once you take something on, it's hard to get rid of it. But again, it's that I've never wanted to get rid of it. I don't want to make that in any way sound like a complaint. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to give back to the association. But you do have some support activities at conferences and professional development training activities, et cetera. And then also part of your responsibility to NMA headquarters is to submit leads on that perhaps will form new chapters or new councils throughout your service as an NMA director. And that is actually the end of the formal presentation. The rest of this is just a set of appendixes that gives you tools, you know, how to access the online report, My NMA. This is your director's toolkit, the NMA Code of Ethics, something to always keep in front of you, principles of leadership, and then a monthly checklist, and I think some links to those documents that I've been talking about. So those are also in the presentation package as well. And with that, in maybe about 5 minutes, I'll field any questions. And we have Sue and Steve on the line as well. Kathy Spatz, our national vice chair. Promoted you a little too soon there, Kathy. Is also on the line if anyone has any questions.
This is Avis. I have 2 more quick comments. When you were talking about chapters and councils committee CAR 1s and CAR 2s, individual members also submitted monthly RIM. So we get recognition for what we do, as well as chapters and councils. The other thing
Thank you, Avis.
the other thing I wanted to say was, as a national director, submitting your online reports on time. Please do that, because your chapters can take a point in their car one every time you do it.
Good ad. Thanks, Avis.
I'm
So
done.
I know we have some other directors on, and a number of you who are looking to go on NMA online right as soon as we finish, so you can fill out your director petitions. So are there any other questions? Steve, Sue, any other comments you want to add that I whipped through a little too quickly?
No, this is Steve. You had a lot to cover in not a whole lot of time. So congratulations on giving people much more in-depth overview of what a director does than most people probably had. Cathy is a strong proponent of the leadership development that accrues to you via being on the board of directors. As a staff person, I've seen that myself over the years. It's amazing watching people come onto the board. Maybe they're a little tentative about it. They get engaged, they make new friends, they see the big picture, and in a few years, they're chairman of the board. And it's just really, really nice to see. And as we try and keep NMA relevant and lay the groundwork for the future, we need new blood, we need new opinions, and we need new people dedicated to service. So I'm hoping Cathy has motivated some of you to give it some serious thought. Sue, Robin, and I, let alone Cathy Spatz, all the people on the board are always here to answer your questions and encourage you to take that step. Any questions? Anybody?
Well, I'll just conclude, Steve, with one final comment, and that is, you know, you don't stick with something as long as I've stuck with this if you're not getting something out of it. And the one thing I would leave you with is you get far more out of this than you give. And it's a phenomenal opportunity, not just for professional growth, but personal growth and the friends and literally the family that you gain by being part of the NMA board. So that's what I'll end with.
That is so true. Well said.
All right, then I want to thank you, Cathy, and thank all of our participants. And geez, it's only Tuesday, so I can't say have a good weekend, so I'll just wish everyone a great week. Remember, we have a seminar tomorrow night on from IQ Share about DoD Directive 8570, I think it is. And then Thursday, we have our Live on Live webinar, Getting and Receiving Feedback. So 2 more opportunities to join us this week. Thanks again, Cathy.